It was a rainy Thursday morning, gray clouds, soft thunder in the distance, and the kind of cold that makes your coffee feel more like comfort than caffeine. I had just sat down at my desk when my phone buzzed. A group text from Mom. Family dinner this Friday. Private chef. At Atlas campus. 7 p.m. sharp. Dress well. Mom. I froze. Atlas campus. My Atlas campus. I stared at the message, almost laughing. It was surreal. They were planning a fancy family dinner inside the very tech campus I built from the ground up, and not a single one of them had a clue. Because to them, I was still just Camille, the youngest, the creative one, the girl who helped with admin at some startup they could never bother to remember the name of. They had no idea that I was the CEO, the founder, that I ran one of the most advanced AI firms in the city, that Atlas campus wasn't just some building. It was my empire. I opened our internal reservation portal, and there it was. Julian Rivers, my older brother. Booked under his investment firm's account. Private lounge, full executive dinner service. Friday night, 7 p.m. Of course, he booked the most luxurious conference suite. Julian always had a taste for big gestures. The irony, he thought he was treating us to dinner in some elite space. But really, he was hosting our family at a company I built on land I bought with staff I hired. He didn't know. None of them did. Not Mom, not Dad, not even Leona. They still thought I was just helping out. Running errands, organizing meetings, taking notes, not building a tech campus valued at $15 million, not leading a team of 120 engineers, developers, and innovators, not shaping the future. And now they were coming. To my campus, to sit in one of my boardrooms, to eat a 5-course dinner while still believing I'm some glorified secretary. I took a deep breath, sipped my coffee, and smiled. They're gathering in the heart of my empire, and still think I'm the assistant. Let's see how long that lasts. I wish I could say I was surprised, but honestly, I wasn't. I've always been the soft one, the emotional one, the artsy one. While Julian was landing internships on Wall Street and Leona was dissecting cadavers in med school, I was sketching out interface designs on a cracked iPad and reading machine learning papers for fun. They rolled their eyes when I said I wanted to build something of my own. Startups are unstable, Camille Dad said. Mom just shook her head and said, why not find a nice husband first? Someone with a real job. They never took me seriously. They saw Julian as the future billionaire, Leona as the lifesaver, and me, just the girl who kept chasing impossible dreams in hoodies and headphones. But while they were celebrating milestones in hospitals and hedge funds, I was turning a derelict warehouse into a high-tech campus. I didn't start with millions. I started with a vision. And stubbornness. A ridiculous amount of stubbornness. Now Lyra Tech employs 120 people. We've built a proprietary AI platform that just closed its Series C at $72 million. We've partnered with universities, labs, and even Fortune 500s. But ask my parents what I do. They'll still say, she works with computers. That's how deep the dismissal goes. It's why I stopped trying to explain. Because it didn't matter what I achieved. To them, I was always going to be the kid who played with robots instead of going to law school. So I stopped updating them. I let them think I was just assisting someone else's dream. And somewhere along the way, I liked it that way, because being underestimated, it gave me space to move in silence. My team doesn't even call me Camille. They call me C. Just C. At work, that name means something. It means leadership, vision, ownership. But at home, Camille still means the one who couldn't measure up. That's what this dinner was about, wasn't it? Another staged opportunity to remind me what I should have done, who I should have been. But this time, they were walking straight into my world, my space, my rules, and they didn't even know it. This wasn't going to be just another dinner. This was going to be the night they realized everything they believed about me was wrong. And I was ready. So ready. The next morning, I walked into Atlas like I always do, head down, hoodie up, invisible to the outside world, but known by everyone inside these walls. Ellie was already in my office sipping her third cup of black coffee and reviewing code updates. She looked up and raised an eyebrow. So she said, "You really gonna go through with this?" I nodded. "Yup." Family dinner. Friday night. Right here. Ellie leaned back. "You sure you want to play it like this? What if they don't handle it well?" I knew what she meant. She wasn't talking about drama. She was talking about damage, the kind that leaves scars. But I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to prove anyone wrong. I just wanted them for once to see me as I really am. Not as the little sister, not as the family's afterthought, but as a builder, a leader, a woman who made something real. "I'm not doing this to rub it in their faces," I said. Ellie gave me a look. "Okay, maybe just a little," I smirked. But then I added, "Mostly, I just want to stop pretending." She nodded slowly. "You telling the staff who's coming?" "Nope," I said. "I want them to get treated like anyone else. No extra smiles, no fake service. Just the real experience." Ellie chuckled. "Then you better hope Julian doesn't act like a tool." I laughed, but there was a knot in my stomach. Because I knew he would. He always does. He walks into every room like he owns it. And this time, well, let's just say the ownership conversation was going to get interesting. I pulled up the logistics dashboard. Everything was set. Lounge C was prepped, lighting, sound, AV system, menu confirmed with our chef, wine selected. But more than that, I was ready. I had spent years shrinking myself to make everyone else more comfortable, dimming the light so my success wouldn't feel like bragging. But there's a difference between humility and hiding. And I was done hiding. Still, I could hear her voice in my head. Christmas, 2 years ago, standing in her kitchen while she folded napkins and gave advice I never asked for. "Camille, honey, not everyone can be a leader." "That's okay." She meant it kindly, like a soft landing for someone who'd clearly missed the mark. I smiled and nodded back. Then, because what else could I do? But what she didn't realize, what none of them realized, is that not everyone should lead. But I could. I did. And I was about to show them. Not with a speech, not with a PowerPoint, just by letting them walk into the space I built and letting it speak for itself. Ellie stood up to leave. "You want me to be on standby during the dinner?" I shook my head. "Nah, just keep the ops smooth. I'll handle the rest." She raised her mug. "To soft ones who build empires." I clinked my coffee against hers. "To being underestimated," I said. And this time, I meant it as a warning. I got there early. I always do. I took the side elevator to the observatory level, a quiet mezzanine that overlooks the atrium. From there, you can see everything. The glass ceiling, the marble floors, the waterfall wall glowing with programmable LEDs. I stood there just watching, and right on time, they walked in. First Julian striding like he owned the place. Then Mom and Dad arms linked, and behind them Leona tapping away on her phone, probably responding to a patient. They didn't see me yet, but I saw them. And for a second, I wondered what it would feel like if they knew. If they understood that every inch of the space they were admiring, the custom lighting, the floating staircase, the touchless entry tech, it all came from me. My decisions, my vision, my risk. Dad looked up at the arching ceiling and let out a low whistle. "Whoever built this must be brilliant," he said. "This place is something else." Julian nodded. "This had to cost, what, $50 million to develop? We're definitely not in Kansas anymore." I smiled to myself. "No, Julian, you're not." I took the elevator down and walked in quietly through the side entrance. None of them even noticed me at first, until Mom turned, glanced over, and immediately wrinkled her nose. "You wore that?" she asked. I looked down at my black blazer, dark jeans, and sneakers. Comfortable. Intentional. Mine. Yeah, I said. It's just dinner. She gave me that tight, polite smile, the one she saves for moments when she's just disappointed enough to make a point. Julian looked up from the touchscreen wall panel. Hey, Camille, do me a favor. These smart lights are too warm. Can you grab the assistant or whatever, have them tone it down a bit? I just stared at him for a second. He didn't even pause to think maybe I was the one who set the default presets in the first place. Sure, I said. I'll take care of it. He gave me a thumbs up and went back to admiring the view. And then came Leona. She looked me up and down, her voice low and a little too casual. Still organizing spreadsheets for your tech bros, I could have answered her a dozen different ways. I could have mentioned the Series C raise. I could have listed the enterprise contracts we just signed. I could have told her I had more equity in this building than she had in her entire investment portfolio. But instead, I just smiled. Something like that. Because this wasn't the moment. Not yet. They were still walking through it like it wasn't mine. Like I was just tagging along, like I hadn't already built the room they were standing in. And honestly, that made what was coming next even better, because they were about to see everything. And for the first time in my life, they wouldn't be able to unsee it. Dinner was extravagant. 5 courses, chef-curated, paired wines, custom place cards. Julian made sure to announce twice that it was all being billed to his firm's corporate card. Perks of closing a $40 million fund last month, he said, lifting his glass. Leona smiled politely. Dad clapped him on the back. Mom looked proud, like she had personally raised a Forbes cover. Meanwhile, I sat there carving into a steak I'd helped source from our local partners. It was tender perfect. Nobody noticed. The conversation moved fast. Julian was talking about an AI-powered analytics platform he was backing. I'm telling you, this space is exploding, he said. Everyone wants in. It's gonna reshape the economy. Leona chimed in with stories from Zurich, where she had just performed a complex neural resection. Dad asked about the patient's outcome. Mom asked about the surgeon's dinner after. But no one asked me a single thing. Not about work, not about my week, not about my life. It was like I didn't exist. Like I was just extra silverware at the table. And then somewhere between the truffle risotto and dessert, Dad leaned in. His tone shifted. Serious, heavy. Camille, he said, we worry about you. I looked up, fork still in hand. You're 33. No husband, no house, no real title. He kept going. This tech dream of yours, it's not real. At some point, you've got to come back to Earth. I didn't say anything. Not yet. Because when a person's already decided who you are, your words don't matter. Not until you show them something they can't ignore. But he wasn't done. You'll never be a CEO, Camille. You're too soft. Too sentimental. You take things personally. That's not how leadership works. Every word landed like a quiet slap. And then came Mom's voice, soft, almost loving. Some people, she said, are made to support, not to lead. And that's okay. I looked at her, at the woman who raised me. And for a second, I couldn't tell if she was trying to comfort me or contain me. And honestly, that moment hurt more than anything they'd said all night. My phone buzzed. I glanced down. A message from campus security. One of the guests is snapping at staff. Need intervention? I didn't need to guess who it was. I looked across the table. Julian was waving his hand, speaking to one of our junior servers like he was ordering around an intern. Same old Julian. I slid my phone back into my jacket pocket. And then I stood up. Calm. Centered. Done. I think it's time I said that I introduce you all to the CEO of this place. The room went quiet. Julian blinked. Wait, what? Dad looked confused. Leona tilted her head, suspicious, but curious. I turned to the lounge doors and gave a small nod. Right on cue, our head of campus operations walked in, tablet in hand. He walked over silent and handed it to me. I tapped once, then turned the screen toward them. This is Atlas Campus, I said. Owned and operated by Lyra Tech Incorporated. I paused. And I'm the CEO. Silence. Total. Heavy. Deafening. For once, no one had anything clever to say. Dad leaned forward, squinting at the tablet. That's not possible. It's very possible, I said. We incorporated in 2018, leased the warehouse in 2019, broke ground on the campus that fall, raised our first seed round 6 months later. Julian finally spoke. You're telling me you built this? Yes. He laughed, once short and sharp. Camille, come on. You were doing spreadsheets. No, I said. I was building infrastructure, hiring engineers, negotiating equity with VCs, writing patents. Leona looked stunned. You're C. I nodded. I thought that was, I don't know, some guy, some founder genius I saw at the TechNext summit. That was me. Her mouth dropped slightly, but she said nothing else. Mom's fork hit her plate. But you never said anything. You never asked, I said. Not once. Dad sat back in his chair, arms crossed. But his eyes, they weren't angry. They were afraid. Afraid he'd missed something. Afraid he had no idea who I really was. And finally, that was the truth they couldn't look away from. Julian stared at me like I'd just flipped the universe upside down. His jaw tightened, his voice low. You're Camille C. Rivers, the one who pitched at Founders Summit last year. I nodded. That was me. We watched that pitch at the firm, he said slowly. You raised what? 7 million back then. 72 million this quarter alone, I said. Series C. He blinked. Hard, like his brain was still buffering. Mom put her napkin down. Her hands were shaking, and then she started crying. Not the proud tears, not the my baby made it tears, confused tears, stunned tears. I don't understand, she whispered. Why didn't you tell us? I looked at her, and for the first time that night, my voice dropped too. You never asked. You decided what I was a long time ago, and never left any room for who I became. Dad cleared his throat, but said nothing. Julian leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. So all this time, we thought you were working some entry-level admin job. You thought I was small, I said. So you stopped looking. Leona hadn't said a word. Not since the reveal. But now, she did. Softly. Almost in a whisper. I watched your TED Talk last year. I turned to her. I didn't know it was you, she said. The voice was familiar. The story sounded close, but I didn't put it together. I should have. And in that moment, she didn't look like the older sister with all the answers. She just looked like someone who realized she missed something important, something that had always been right in front of her. I sat back down, not triumphant, not smug, just done hiding. There was nothing left to perform, because the truth was out now, and there was no going back. After that, the energy shifted. The room didn't explode. No screaming, no slammed fists. It just cracked. Dad sat stiffly, arms still folded, but his expression had changed. It wasn't disappointment anymore. It was something colder, smaller, wounded pride. He didn't say much after that, just kept glancing toward the door. Julian stood suddenly, pushing his chair back hard. You could have told us, he snapped. We're not strangers. No, I said, you're family. And that's what made it harder. He didn't respond. He just muttered something under his breath and walked out. Didn't even finish his wine. Didn't say goodbye. A minute later, the lounge doors clicked shut behind him. Mom cleared her throat, wiped her eyes. Camille, she said, I am proud. I just wish you'd trusted us enough to share it. I looked at her. That almost apology, that quiet attempt to recenter the story around her feelings. And I realized something right then. It wasn't that I hadn't told them. It's that they'd never been listening. So I stood up, grabbed my phone, and said, I'll let you finish dessert. Then I turned and walked away, back through the hallway, past the elevators, into my office. I sat at my desk, took a breath, and texted our chef. Please comp the dinner. Add a note, from the CEO family is complicated. Then I walked over to the window and watched as they left. No hugs, no eye contact, no final words. Just coats on heads down out the lobby doors into the night, like strangers exiting a restaurant. Not one of them looked back. Not even once. And that hurt more than I wanted to admit. My phone buzzed. I glanced down. It was Leona. I'd love to actually understand what you do. Coffee next week, I stared at the screen. And for the first time that night, I smiled. I stared at Leona's message for a moment longer. Then typed back, I'd like that. Let's talk like adults, not siblings. A few seconds later, another text came in, this time from Julian. I was a jerk. I get it now. You built something I never saw coming. I'm sorry. I didn't reply. Not yet. Some things take time. I set my phone down, turned back to my laptop, and reopened the pitch deck that had been waiting all evening. A robotic startup out of Toronto. Early traction. Interesting tech. I took a sip of wine, full-bodied, just the way I like it, and started reading through the numbers. And for the first time in hours, everything felt quiet. Not heavy, just still. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even sad anymore. Because I finally understood something. I didn't build all this to prove a point. I didn't build it to impress them. I built it because I could. And now, finally, they saw it. If this story hit home, stick around. We drop brand new drama stories like this every single day. Stories that'll make you think and maybe even heal a little. So, go ahead. Hit subscribe. You don't want to miss tomorrow's. It's a wild one.